How's everybody doing today? This is Ron, own a company called Sandcar Services, and I get a question asked to me an awful lot that I figured I'd go ahead and address. We'll make this like tech tip of the day. What we're viewing right here, for those of you that may not know, is what is known commonly as a Mendeola 2D transaxle. These are typically in sandrails. And other off-road type of vehicles. It is I guess, glorified, beefed up bus transmission that a company called Mendeola originally designed to make stronger when the higher horsepower engines were being put on. And they're great transaxles. What we're going to discuss today is servicing these. First off, for the people that call me and ask what it costs to service a Mendeola when you bring it into me, please remember that to me, servicing a transmission is simple oil change. If you're going to do what we did to this, which is tear it completely down, check everything, change what needs to be fixed, and put it back together, that's considered a refresh or a repair. So service is an oil change, and that's what we're going to be discussing here today. So when you're changing the oil on a Mendeola 2D, some of the questions I get asked is where's the drain plug and where's the correct fill plug? So on a Mendeola 2D, typically, the drain plug is normally right here. It's at the rear mount of the transmission, which is underneath your bell housing. So your engine would be right here. Remember that because the transaxles on Volkswagens were backwards, where your shifter goes on to the transaxle is actually the front of the transmission in orientation. Okay, so the rear mount has a 17 millimeter Allen in it. Sometimes these are so tight they literally will strip. I don't know why people have to tighten them down that tight. They're pipe threads, so they basically just kind of wedge themselves in as they get tighter. You put a little bit of sealant on them, and make sure your threads are clean and you're fine. But this is the official drain for the transmission. Typical Mendeola 2D holds 4 quarts of oil. And my recommendation for oil is Maxima Pro Gear Full Synthetic 75-140. It's what I put in every transmission that I actually build and service. LAT makes a great oil also. It's more money, and to me, it doesn't really have much better protection factor. So I go with the Maxima. It is recommended by Weddell, who is the manufacturer for the parts, the OEM parts for these, and they have recommended to me that it's okay to use that, and I go with that oil. Now, there are 2 different places on a 2D typically that you can do a fill. Accidentally, people always mess with this. Now, this is considered a load bolt. Okay, this bolt is a brass bolt with a jam nut. It's a 3/4 16 thread pitch. The nut is 1/8 inch wrench, and the actual load bolt is a 9/16 wrench most of the time, if not all the time. And its primary job is to go through the case and rest right behind the ring gear for your differential, so that when you are under heavy loads of throttle, that the ring does not try to pry itself off of the pinion and keeps a proper gap on your ring and pinion. If you end up taking this out, and you shouldn't do that, this you should never mess with unless you know what you're doing and you're making an adjustment, which typically doesn't get done until a refresh is done. In the event that you pull this load bolt nut loose, there is a reset procedure for it. And it can be done with the transmission together if you know what you're doing. I will do that on a separate vehicle or separate video, and we can go from there. But the actual fill bolt, which is there's two different size bolts. The threads are still 3/4 16 thread pitch. Typically, 1 1/8 is the socket. You'll need a thin wall socket to be able to fit in this groove. That's the most common plug that you will see is an 1 1/8. But I have seen some that have the same thread but with a 1-inch head. So you just have to kind of figure out what you're doing. You want to pour oil in your transmission with a funnel or however you plan on getting it in here. And your transmission should hold 4 quarts really close to it, and you'd like to see the oil drip out of this hole into your bucket before you put your fill plug back in and cinch your fill plug down. In the event that you have a stripped 17mm drain plug, now there should be a magnet on the back of this plug. If it's got a lot of debris on it, you're going to want to contact your transmission service provider and give them a picture of what that magnet looks like so they can tell you if you need to be concerned with having that transmission pulled out of the vehicle and serviced. But on some, not all, but on some Mendeolas, there is a pipe plug right here, and I believe it's a 5/16 size, that technically you can pull and use this as a drain if you're unable to get to this plug right here. I have seen in my career many sandrails that have come in that have had a frame in front of this or a bar where you can't even get to this plug, and I don't know why they would build it that way, but they have. So if that happens, you do have the option of pulling this plug and draining it from here. It's not ideal, but it is an option. So hopefully this helps everybody out on servicing your Mendeola 2Ds. Hopefully I've answered all the questions. We're up on the 7-minute mark, so I gotta go. Thanks for watching. Ron with Sandcar Services.